So facial nerve, this seventh cranial nerve supplies the muscles of facial expression as they are derived from the second pharyngeal arch. Facial nerve is nerve of the second pharyngeal arch. Okay. Glossopharyngeal nerve was nerve of the third pharyngeal arch. We have learned yesterday. These are the functional components and the nuclei of this facial nerve. First one is facial visceral efferent. These fibers arise from motor nucleus of facial nerve and it supplies the muscles derived from the second pharyngeal arch. Those are muscles of facial expression. Next are general visceral efferent fibers. Okay. These are preganglionic parasympathetic fibers and arise from the lacrimatory nucleus and superior salivatory nucleus of the pons, and these nucleus are located in the pons and they relay at the pterygopalatine and submandibular ganglion for lacrimation and salivation respectively. Okay, for lacrimation pterygopalatine ganglion, for salivation submandibular ganglion. And the postganglionic fibers of the pterygopalatine ganglion supply the lacrimal gland through the zygomatic branch of the trigeminal nerve. These fibers are traveling through this zygomatic branch of trigeminal nerve. And the postganglionic fibers arise of the submandibular ganglion, supply the submandibular and sublingual salivary glands. Okay. So these are the functions of general visceral efferent component, mainly lacrimation and salivation. Next is spatial visceral efferent. These fibers carry taste sensation. Efferent means sensory fibers. So these will carry the taste sensation from the anterior 2/3 of the tongue except the valate papilla to the upper part of the nucleus of Tractus solitarius, and the cell bodies of these fibers lie in the geniculate ganglion. Okay. Next is general somatic afferent fibers. These have their cell bodies in the geniculate ganglion, and the peripheral processes of these cells innervate the part of the skin of external ear, while the central processes terminate in the spinal nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. So these are the functions of these two components. Next, so these are the four components of the facial nerve. First one is spatial visceral efferent fibers. Nucleus is motor nucleus of facial nerve, supplies muscles of second pharyngeal arch, muscle of facial expression. And general visceral efferent fiber, they are coming from lacrimatory nucleus and parasympathetic supply to the lacrimal gland, helps in secretion of tear. Okay. And superior salivatory nucleus, from here parasympathetic fibers are going to submandibular and sublingual salivary glands and helps in saliva secretion. Next is afferent. Two afferent fibers are there, spatial visceral afferent and general somatic afferent. Spatial visceral afferent nucleus is nucleus tractus solitarius and it carries taste sensation from the anterior 2/3 of the tongue except the valate papilla. And general somatic afferent fibers, their nucleus is the spinal nucleus of the trigeminal nerve and it carries sensation from skin of the external ear. Okay, so these are the four types of fibers in the facial nerve and their functions. Next is origin of the facial nerve. Facial nerve is attached to the brain stem between the lower border of the pons and upper end of the medulla at the pontomedullary junction. We have seen in the previous class, you have seen the nerves coming out from the brain stem. So it is coming out from the pontomedullary junction and the nerve lies lateral to the abducens, lateral to the 6th nerve and medial to the 8th nerve, medial to the 8th cranial nerve, vestibulocochlear. And this facial nerve arises by two roots. One is medial larger motor root and lateral smaller sensory root. And this sensory root, another name is there, nervus intermedius of Rysberg. Okay, this is very important for your viva. What is nervus intermedius of Rysberg? The sensory, smaller sensory root of facial nerve is known as nervus intermedius. Okay, and the roots enter the internal auditory meatus. You have seen internal auditory meatus in middle cranial fossa, and along with the vestibulocochlear nerve and labyrinthine vessels. And at this lateral end of the meatus, the two roots unite to form the trunk of the facial nerve. Okay. Next, the roots enter the internal. Next, we are going to course and the distribution of the nerve. So the roots enter the internal auditory meatus, and at the lateral end of meatus, the two roots unite to form the trunk of the facial nerve. And then the facial nerve runs above the bony labyrinth of the internal ear and bends posteriorly in the medial wall of the middle ear, forming the genu of the facial nerve. And it runs in the facial canal, exits through the stylomastoid foramen at the base of the skull. And finally, it enters the parotid gland, terminates by dividing into the 5 terminal branches. Here you can see this is parotid gland. After coming out from stylomastoid foramen, it is entering into the parotid gland from its posteromedial surface, and then is dividing into 2 trunks, temporofacial trunk and cervicofacial trunk. And this temporofacial trunk dividing into 2 branches, temporal branch, zygomatic branch, and this cervicofacial trunk is dividing into 3 branches, buccal, marginal mandibular and cervical. Buccal branch is again dividing into upper and lower buccal. Okay, so 5 terminal branches are there: temporal branch, zygomatic branch, marginal, buccal branch, marginal mandibular and cervical. Okay, so this diagram is important and this is very frequently given in your theory. 5 terminal branches. Okay, next. So this is the summarization of this. So origin is from the brainstem at pontomedullary junction. It arises by 2 roots, medial larger motor root and lateral small nervus intermedius or sensory root. Course, it arises from pontomedullary junction, then enters into the internal acoustic meatus, and then passes through the facial canal within the middle ear, and here geniculate ganglion is also there. And after passing through the middle ear, it is coming out through the stylomastoid foramen and then enters into the parotid gland, and after that it is dividing into 5 terminal branches. Okay, so this is the course of the nerve. And these are the branches of the facial nerve at different levels. Okay, so greater petrosal nerve, it provides secretomotor fibers to the lacrimal gland, nasal and palatal glands. These are mucous glands mainly, nasal and palatal glands. Next are nerve to stapedius muscle. Stapedius is a small muscle in the middle ear. Okay, helps to control the frequency of the sound affecting the middle ear ossicles. Next is the cauda tympani nerve. It is giving parasympathetic supply to some mandibular and some lingual salivary glands, and it carries the taste sensation from anterior 2/3 of the tongue except the valent papilla. Okay, and posterior 1/3 along with valent papilla is carried by the glossopharyngeal nerve. You have read in the previous class. Okay. Next is posterior auricular nerve. Posterior auricular nerve is supplying to the occipitalis muscle, posterior auricular muscles. And this nerve to posterior belly of digastric and stylohyoid. These are also supplied by facial nerve. Next, these are the terminal branches, 5 terminal branches: temporal, zygomatic, buccal, marginal mandibular and cervical. So these are the branches and their supplying area. So facial nerve, first branch is greater petrosal nerve. It joins the, this point is very important. Okay, Nerve of pterygoid canal. How it is formed is very frequently asked in your viva table during bones viva. Okay, nerve of the pterygoid canal. So greater petrosal nerve, it joins with the deep petrosal nerve to form nerve of pterygoid canal, and it provides the secretomotor fibers to the lacrimal, nasal and palatal glands. Next is nerve to stapedius. It supplies the stapedius muscle in the middle ear. Next is cauda tympani nerve. Next is posterior auricular nerve to supply the occipitalis and posterior auricular muscles. Nerve to posterior belly of digastric and stylohyoid muscles, and terminal branches. Terminal branches are temporal, zygomatic, buccal, mandibular and cervical branch to the muscles of facial expressions. Next, see here. Okay, here this nerve is coming out. These are the nucleus involved in the along with facial nerve. Okay, this superior salivatory nucleus and lacrimatory nucleus. This is motor nucleus of the facial nerve. This is nucleus tractus solitarius, and this is spinal nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. Okay, these three are located in the pons, and this is located in the medulla. Okay, and here you can see the branches. This is posterior auricular branch, and this branch is supplying the stapedius and this posterior belly of digastric and stylohyoid, and it is entering into the parotid gland coming from this motor nucleus. From the motor nucleus, it is supplying the muscles mainly. So it is supplying the stapedius, this posterior belly of digastric, posterior auricular branch, stylohyoid, and then dividing into 5 terminal branch to supply muscles of facial expression. And here you can see this is geniculate ganglion, here the relay occurring. This is greater petrosal nerve. Okay, it is supplying the lacrimal gland after relaying through the pterygopalatine ganglion. And this part is cauda tympani nerve. It has both sensory and motor fibers. Sensory fiber carries taste sensation from anterior two-thirds of the tongue, and the motor fibers, they are relaying at this submandibular ganglion and supplying the parasympathetic fibers for the sublingual and submandibular salivary gland and helps in secretion of the saliva. Okay, so these are different branches and they are supplying areas of the facial nerve. Next you can see the terminal branches. This is posterior auricular branch, okay, supplying the auricularis muscles, posterior auricular muscle, posterior belly of occipitofrontalis, like this, and these are the terminal branches. Temporal, zygomatic, buccal, okay, upper and lower buccal, marginal mandibular, and this cervical branch. Okay, during face dissection, some of the branches you have seen. This buccal branches mainly can be identified during face dissection. Okay, these are very fine branches. Next, the facial nerve emerges from the stylomastoid foramen and then runs about 1 centimeter downward and forward and pierces the posterior medial surface of the parotid gland. An intraparotid course of facial nerve within the parotid gland, the facial nerve runs forward, divides into these two trunks, temporofacial, cervicofacial. Temporofacial gives rise to temporal and zygomatic branch. Cervicofacial gives rise to buccal, marginal mandibular and cervical branches. What is pes anserinus? This is also important for viva. And also part of long question it can come. Facial nerve is very, very important for your long question. Bell's palsy is an important clinical aspect. Okay, so Bell's palsy comes in your theory and any of the part can be given in your theory question. Origin, branches or like this. Okay. So pes anserinus, the 5 terminal branches radiate like the goose feet through the anterior border of parotid gland. And this branching pattern is called the pes anserinus. And these are the muscles of facial expression supplied by the branches of facial nerve are these. Okay, so temporal branch, it is supplying the frontalis auricularis muscle, orbicularis oculi upper part, and corrugator supercilii. Zygomatic branch supply lower half of the orbicularis oculi. Buccal branch supply muscles of cheek and upper lip. Marginal mandibular supply muscle of lower lip, and cervical branch supplies the platysma. So these are the 5 terminal branch are there supplying facial muscles. Okay. Next. Next are some clinical aspects. So neck lacerations and surgical suturing. In neck lacerations, careful suturing of the lacerated part is essential because it may cause large scarring and delayed healing. Okay. And platysma bands. What are platysma bands? These are vertical cords that appear as one of the first sign of aging in old women mainly. In front of the neck, you must have seen vertical bands, okay, vertical folds of skin. These are produced due to platysma, okay, due to it may be due to sagging of the skin and loss of muscle tone and paralysis of the facial muscles. This is the main reason of platysma bands. Next is paralysis of orbicularis oculi. It results in drooping of the lower eyelid called ectropion, and it causes spilling of tears over the face, that is known as epiphora. Okay, these will be the symptoms of paralysis of facial nerve. Next, there will be paralysis of orbicularis oris. It prevents closure of the lips, causing slurring of speech and dribbling of saliva from the angle of the mouth. And next is paralysis of buccinator muscle. It results in accumulation of food in the vestibule of mouth during mastication, and the person cannot blow his cheek, cannot whistle. Okay, in case of paralysis of buccinator muscle. Next. Next, we are going to the discussion of chorda tympani nerve. Chorda tympani nerve can come as a short note. Okay. So, it has both the afferent and efferent fibers. Chorda tympani is a branch of facial nerve. We have seen previously. Next is beginning. It arises from the facial nerve about 6 centimeter above the stylomastoid foramen in the facial canal. See here, this is facial canal, okay, which is lying within the middle ear. Here the chorda tympani nerve is arising, okay, and it is related to the medial aspect of spine of the sphenoid, joining with the lingual nerve and supplying to the lacrimal gland, supplying to the submandibular and sublingual salivary gland, not the lacrimal. Okay, so beginning it arises from facial nerve about 6 centimeter above the stylomastoid foramen. Here is the stylomastoid foramen. So chorda tympani is arising 6 centimeter above the stylomastoid foramen, and this nerve, and in the facial canal, this is bony facial canal lying within the middle ear. And the chorda tympani nerve runs forward, enter the middle ear through the posterior canaliculus of the chorda tympani nerve, and in the middle ear, it runs forward across the lateral wall of middle ear on the medial side of the tympanic membrane. See, this rounded structure is the tympanic membrane. So nerve is lying on the medial side of the tympanic membrane, and these are the ear ossicles. Incus, malleus and stapes has been removed here. It leaves the middle cranial fossa and enters the infratemporal fossa through the anterior canaliculus of chorda tympani nerve, which opens at the medial end of the petrotympanic fissure. Next, in the infratemporal fossa, the chorda tympani nerve runs downward and forward under the cover of lateral pterygoid muscle, and here it crosses the medial side of spine of the sphenoid. Here, you can see This is anterior canaliculus of the chorda tympani nerve, and here after coming out from here, it lies on the medial spine of the sphenoid. And finally, it joins the lingual nerve at an acute angle. Here it is joining with the lingual nerve. Okay. Next, these are the functional components of the chorda tympani nerve. It carries general visceral efferent fibers. These are preganglionic parasympathetic fibers to the submandibular and sublingual salivary glands. Here you can see it is relaying over this parasympathetic fibers. Pink one is the general visceral efferent or preganglionic parasympathetic fibers relaying at this submandibular ganglion and supplied to the sublingual and submandibular ganglion. And this is afferent fiber. This green one is the afferent fiber. Spatial visceral afferent fibers. They carry the taste sensation from the anterior 2/3 of the tongue except the circumvallate papilla. Okay. Next. So these are the functional component. Next, we are going to the Bell's palsy. Bell's palsy very important for your theory. Very frequently given in your theory question. Bell's palsy. Okay. So what is Bell's palsy? Injury to the facial nerve near or outside the stylomastoid foramen produces Bell's palsy. Okay. It is lower motor neuron type of paralysis of the muscles of facial expression, and it may be due to viral infection and unknown cause. Okay, these are the causes. Next, we are going to the features of facial nerve paralysis. The following features are present on the side of the paralysis. Okay, if one side of the nerve is involved, there will be facial asymmetry due to unopposed action of the muscles of the unaffected side. Next, there will be loss of horizontal wrinkles of the forehead due to paralysis of occipitofrontalis muscle. There will be inability to close the eye and widening of the palpebral fissure due to paralysis of orbicularis oculi. And epiphora is spilling of tears on the face due to paralysis of orbicularis oculi, and drooping of the angle of mouth towards the affected side, and drooping of the saliva due to paralysis of orbicularis oris. Okay. Next, see here, this is normal side, and on this side it is involved right-sided facial nerve paralysis, lower motor neuron type of facial nerve paralysis. Okay. See, unopposed action of muscles of unaffected side, facial asymmetry, two sides looks different. Okay. Paralysis of occipitofrontalis. Occipitofrontalis is lying here over the forehead. So due to paralysis of it, there will be loss of horizontal wrinkles. See, normal side there are horizontal wrinkles. On the affected side, no horizontal wrinkles. Next is paralysis of orbicularis oculi. Here it is lying around the eye. Okay, around the orbit, anterior opening of orbit. There will be inability to close the eye and widening of the palpebral fissure and spilling of the tear, epiphora. Next is paralysis of levator labii superioris, alicinasi, loss of nasolabial furrow. This one is nasolabial furrow. So on this side, levator labii superioris alicinasi, and one of the facial muscle. This is paralyzed, so loss of nasolabial furrow. Paralysis of orbicularis oris, which is lying around the opening of the mouth. There will be drooping of the angle of mouth. Angle of mouth is deviated downward towards the affected side, and drooling of the saliva. Patient cannot close the mouth properly, so there will be continuous drooling of the saliva, and continuous tearing will be there. And paralysis of buccinator muscle. Buccinator, it will lead to inability of whistling and accumulation of food in the vestibule of mouth. Okay. So these will be the symptoms of facial nerve paralysis in Bell's palsy, lower motor neuron type of facial nerve paralysis. Next. So inability of whistling and accumulation of food in the vestibule of mouth. Vestibule means the junction between the teeth and the lips. Okay, the area between the teeth and the lips. So food will be accumulated at this vestibule due to paralysis of the buccinator muscle. And there will be loss of nasolabial furrow due to paralysis of levator labii superioris alicinese. Next, another type of paralysis of facial nerve occurs, that is upper motor neuron type of paralysis or supranuclear palsy. Okay, what will be the difference? That is important, and this comes in your explain why question. Why upper part of face is not involved in upper motor neuron type of facial palsy? Okay, because this upper part of face is supplied from both the hemispheres. If one side is involved, other side supply is intact, so lower upper part of the face will be not involved in the forehead area mainly. Okay. So the facial muscles of the upper half of the face are controlled by both the cerebral hemispheres, and the damage to one cerebral hemisphere or the fibers from it to the nucleus of facial nerve cause supranuclear palsy of the facial nerve. And this type of paralysis, the muscles of upper half of the face remain unaffected. Okay, so that is the difference from lower motor neuron type of paralysis. In lower motor neuron type of paralysis or Bell's palsy, whole of the face on one side will be involved. Okay. Next. Next, we are going to another clinical aspect is Pathés faciovenous plane. It is a plane. We have seen previously in the course of facial nerve. Facial nerve is entering into the parotid gland. Okay, and its terminal branches are coming out from the anterior margin of the parotid gland. So it will pass through the parotid gland and dividing the parotid gland into a larger superficial lobe and smaller deep lobe, and these two lobes are connected by a isthmus, okay, intermediate portion. So this plane through which the facial nerve trunk is passing, this plane is known as Pathés faciovenous plane, and through these planes also retromandibular vein is also passing. So that's why name is given. Facial nerve and retromandibular vein, faciovenous plane. So Pathés faciovenous plane, it is a plane that divides the parotid gland into large superficial and small deeper part of or lobes. And isthmus is a part of glandular tissue present in the Pathés faciovenous plane, and it connects the superficial and deep parts, and this plane is traversed by facial nerve and its branches and the retromandibular vein. And in the surgical removal of the parotid gland, care should be taken along this plane to prevent injury to the facial nerve and retromandibular vein. Okay. If vein is injured, heavy bleeding will be there, and in case of injury of the nerve, there will be facial paralysis. Okay. So in case of removal of parotid gland, you must remember this plane. Okay, to prevent injury to these important structures. Okay. So for the facial nerve, you must read the Bell's palsy, lower motor neuron type of paralysis, and in supranuclear palsy or upper motor neuron type of paralysis. Okay, these and their difference, which comes in your explain why question. Bell's palsy important for your long question. Okay, and those nucleus and branches of the facial nerve, that also comes as a part of the long question. Okay. Facial nerve is very, very important. Whole of the parts is important. Also asked in your viva, from which foramen it is coming out, its terminal branches, all can be given. And you can be also be given in your OSPI questions also. Facial nerve and its terminal branches like this. Okay.